My father demanded I give my dead mother's inherited house to my pregnant stepsister. But when they changed the locks while I was at work, I called the police and blocked them forever. I'm 28 years old. I work in tech, and 5 years ago I inherited my mom's house. And what happened after that basically destroyed any relationship I had with my father and his new family. The truth is, I still find it hard to believe things went as far as they did, but I guess I should start from the beginning so you can understand the whole situation. My mom died when I was 23. Pancreatic cancer. It was all really fast. Like in 6 months, we went from, "You have a tumor," to planning the funeral. She worked her whole life. You know, those jobs where you break your back for a paycheck that barely covers things, but she always had it clear that she wanted to leave me something that would be mine and that nobody could take away from me. So for years, she saved every penny she could, worked extra shifts, skipped vacations, everything to pay for that 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. It's not a mansion or anything like that, but it's a decent house, with a small front, yard, and enough space to live comfortably, and she put it in my name in her will without hesitation. I remember when the lawyer gave me the keys, all I could think was, this is the last thing I have left of her. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a house, it was her entire life's effort turned into something tangible. My dad had remarried like 2 years before Mom died, to a woman who, well, let's say she was never my favorite person. I call her stepmom, but technically, she's not because my parents were already divorced when they met, but since she married my dad, that's what I call her. She has a daughter, Madison, who was like 20 when they got married, and from the beginning it was obvious that Madison was the princess of the family. You know, that person who's never heard a no in her life. I tried to get along with them, really. But there was something in the way they looked at me. Like I was a nuisance, or something temporary, they were going to have to tolerate until I left. The first few years after inheriting the house were pretty quiet. I mean, I moved in there, fixed some things that were old, painted the walls, changed the bathroom floors, basically made it mine but keeping the essence of what my mom had built. I saw my dad occasionally, like dinner every 2 months or something. Nothing very frequent, but we didn't have a horrible relationship either. He never mentioned the house, never asked if I needed help with expenses or maintenance. It was literally as if it didn't exist for him. Everything changed like 8 months ago when Madison got pregnant. Her boyfriend, Connor, a guy I'd met a couple times and who honestly seemed like a jerk from the first moment, left her as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. He just disappeared, blocked Madison on everything, changed his number, the whole story. And look, I'm not gonna lie. I felt some pity for her in that moment because being pregnant and getting abandoned like that must be horrible, but what happened next erased any sympathy I might have had. One afternoon, like a normal Tuesday, I was working from home when I heard knocking at the door. I opened it, and there were the 3 of them, my dad, my stepmom, and Madison, with those faces you make when you're going to ask someone for something really big but you try to seem casual. They told me they needed to talk to me about something important, and I let them in because, well, they were my family, right? We sat in the living room, and my dad started with how Madison was going through a really difficult time, that she was going to be a single mother, that she needed a stable place to raise the baby. And then my stepmom dropped the bomb. She said, "We think the best thing would be for you to give the house to Madison. She really needs it more than you." I sat there processing what I had just heard because I literally couldn't believe they were serious. My dad continued saying that I was young, that I could get a small apartment, that I didn't need that much space anyway. And Madison chimed in with that voice she uses when she wants to get something, saying, "Please, Nathan, think about the baby. He needs a real home." And I just thought, are you listening to yourselves? Do you really think I'm going to give away the house my mother worked her whole life for? I told them no. Simple and direct. This house is the only thing my mom left me, and I'm not going to give it away to anyone, especially someone who had basically just entered my life. My stepmom got furious, started saying I was selfish. How could I be so cruel to my sister, technically half-sister, but not even that really, and her unborn baby? My dad tried the guilt approach, saying things like, "Your mother would have wanted you to help family. I know she would have understood the situation." And that really made me angry because how dare he speak for my mom? She left the house specifically in my name. She didn't put Nathan, and anyone else who needs a place. She put my name, and that meant something. The conversation got more and more tense until I basically kicked them out of my house, told them I wasn't going to discuss the matter anymore and that the answer was no, period. They left, but I could see in their faces that this wasn't over, and I was right. Oh God, I was so right. They started showing up unannounced, like 2 or 3 times a week, always with some new reason why I should give them the house. One day my stepmom showed up with brochures of cheap apartments, saying she had found perfect options for me. Another day, Madison appeared crying, saying that the apartment where she lived with my dad and stepmom was too small for a baby. They tried to leave things at my house too, like a crib that Madison had bought appeared in my garage one day, and when I asked them what it was doing there, they said they were just storing it temporarily. But I knew it was a psychological game, like if they put baby stuff in my house somehow it would to make me change my mind. The worst was when my dad showed up one Saturday morning with a real estate agent. He literally brought a woman with her portfolio and everything, saying she could help me find a more appropriate place for a single man. I was in my pajamas drinking coffee when they knocked on the door. I opened it, and there was this very professional lady with my dad, smiling like he had just solved all my problems. I told the agent there was a mistake, that I wasn't looking to sell or move, and my dad tried to convince me right there, in front of this poor woman who was clearly realizing she'd been dragged into the middle of family drama. The agent left super uncomfortable, and I told my dad to never, ever do something like that again. I thought about installing security cameras because honestly, I was starting to feel invaded in my own house. And a friend who works in security systems helped me put some at the front door, garage, and backyard. I felt a bit paranoid doing it, but it turned out to be the best decision I could have made. One day, I came home from work. It was like 6 in the evening, and when I tried to open the door, my key didn't work. I tried several times thinking maybe the lock was stuck or something, but nothing. I checked the security cameras from my phone, and you're not going to believe this. I saw my dad and stepmom arriving earlier that day with a locksmith, changing the locks on my house. They literally changed my locks while I was at work, as if the house was already theirs. I called my dad immediately and told him, "You have exactly 30 minutes to get back to my house with the new keys, or I'm calling the police and charging you with trespassing, and I don't know how many other charges." He tried to say they were just protecting the property because I wasn't being reasonable, and that Madison needed to move in soon, and I yelled at him, "I don't care what Madison needs. This is my house and you just committed a crime." My stepmom took the phone and started saying I was overreacting, that they just wanted to talk. But I had already dialed the non-emergency police number on my other phone. I told them the officers were already on their way, and that either they showed up with the keys in the next few minutes, or I was going to press formal charges. They arrived like 20 minutes later, super upset, with the new keys and the locksmith who looked mortified for getting involved in this situation. 2 patrol cars also arrived because I had called the police anyway, so there would be a report of what had happened. The officers talked to everyone, reviewed the property title that I showed them, and basically told my dad and stepmom that what they had done was completely illegal and that I could sue them if I wanted. My dad tried to explain that he was my father and just wanted what was best for the family, but the cops weren't interested in the drama, only in the facts. And the fact was they had changed the locks on a property that wasn't theirs without the owner's permission. After that incident, I went straight to a lawyer, the same one who had handled my mom's will. I told him everything that was happening, and he told me something that left me cold. He told me my dad had gone to consult with him months earlier, like shortly after Madison got pregnant, asking if there was any way to contest my mom's will. The lawyer obviously told him no, that the will was solid, and that my mom had been completely in her mental faculties when she made it. But the fact that my dad had tried that without even telling me anything hurt more than I can explain. I confronted him by phone because honestly, I didn't want to see him in person, told him I knew he had tried to take the house from me legally, before resorting to all this emotional manipulation and lock changing. He got defensive immediately, saying he had just been exploring options, that it wasn't anything personal against me, but how could it not be personal? It was. My mom's house, the last piece of her I had left, and he had tried to snatch it from me to give it to his new wife's daughter. My lawyer helped me put additional legal protections in place. Basically documents that made it harder for someone to claim the property or try anything weird, and I upgraded the entire security system, put cameras with better resolution, changed all the locks again, and made sure only I had keys. I felt like I was at war, which was ridiculous because I was just trying to keep what legitimately belonged to me. Madison started posting things on social media. You know, those vague but obvious posts about how family can disappoint you, how some people are so selfish they don't care to see a single mother suffer, that kind of stuff. I never responded, just muted her, because I wasn't going to play that game. But I knew she was trying to make me look like the villain in front of all her friends and acquaintances. Some distant relatives called me, or sent messages, asking what was going on, if it was true that I was refusing to help my sister. And I simply explained the real situation, that she wasn't my blood sister, that the house was my inheritance, and that nobody had the right to demand I give it away. Like 4 months of total silence passed after the lock incident. I didn't hear anything from my dad, stepmom, or Madison, and honestly, it was a relief. I could focus on my work, on fixing up the house, on living my life without the constant stress of wondering what they were going to try next. I found out through a cousin that Madison had had the baby, a boy, and part of me wondered if I should send congratulations or something, but I decided no, that the best thing was to keep my distance. But obviously it wasn't going to be that easy. Like 2 weeks after the baby was born, on a Sunday morning, there was knocking at my door. I looked through the security camera, and there were the 3 of them again. My dad, stepmom, and Madison with the baby, in her arms. I didn't want to open, but they kept knocking and knocking. So I finally opened the door but stayed in the doorway, didn't let them in. My dad started with a speech about second chances and the importance of family, saying they had come to ask me one last time to reconsider, that now that the baby was born, I could see how much Madison really needed a place of her own. Madison brought the baby closer to me, as if seeing him was going to melt my heart or something, saying, "Look, Nathan, this is your nephew. Do you really not care where he's going to grow up?" And I told them, "I'm sorry about the baby. Really, but that doesn't change anything. This house is mine, and I'm not going to give it away." My stepmom completely lost her patience, started screaming that I was a monster. How could I call myself my mother's son when I was being so cruel? That my mom would be rolling in her grave if she knew how selfish I'd become. That was too much. I told her she had no right to talk about my mother, that she didn't know her, that she didn't know anything about what my mom would have wanted, and to get off my property immediately. They didn't leave. They kept standing there in my driveway, my dad trying to reason with me, Madison crying with the baby, my stepmom shouting insults, and the neighbors starting to peek through their windows. I told them if they didn't leave in the next 2 minutes, I was going to call the police, and my dad said something like, "You wouldn't dare do that to your own family." But I pulled out my phone and dialed, and only when the operators answered and I started giving my address did they move. My dad looked at me with an expression I'll never forget, like disappointment mixed with contempt, and said, "Your mother was wrong about you. You should have been a better person." And they left with Madison still crying and my stepmom muttering things I couldn't hear. I blocked them on everything after that. Phone, social media, email, everything. I didn't want to know anything more about them. Some aunts and uncles and cousins tried to mediate, saying maybe we all needed to calm down and talk things through like adults. But I was already fed up. I explained to them that I had tried to be reasonable, that I had said no politely a million times, and that they had escalated the situation to the point of changing the locks on my house. I wasn't going to keep subjecting myself to that. Like a month later, I organized a kind of housewarming party, even though I'd already been living there for 5 years. But I wanted to celebrate the fact that there was finally peace. I invited friends, people from work who had supported me through all this drama, and it was amazing. We cooked in the yard, played music, stayed up late just having a good time in my house, the place my mom had worked so hard to give me. Now it's been like 3 months since the last time I saw my dad and his family, and I don't miss them at all, which is sad but also the truth. I feel good here, calm, without that constant weight of wondering when they're going to show up or what they're going to try to do. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have tried to reach some kind of compromise. But then I remember everything they did, how far they were willing to go to take something from me that wasn't even theirs. And I know I made the right decision. This house is more than walls and a roof. It's proof that my mom loved me, that she thought about my future even when she knew she was dying. Every time I pay the utilities, every time I fix something that breaks, every time I just sit in the backyard with a beer after work. I feel like I'm honoring her memory much more than I would if I had given in to the pressures and demands of people who frankly never really cared about me. Last week, I was mowing the front lawn, and an older neighbor who lives 2 houses down came to talk to me. She told me she had known my mom, that they used to chat, sometimes when they were both working in their yards, and that my mom always talked about me with so much pride, about how hard I worked, what a good son I was. She told me, "Your mom would be proud of you for defending what's yours. She didn't work her whole life for someone else to take the fruit of her effort." I don't know if my mom really would have said that or if the neighbor was just being kind, but it made me feel good. It made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I'm doing the right thing after all. So yeah, here I am, 28 years old, living in the house my mom left me, not talking to my dad or his new family, and honestly more at peace than I've been in a long time. It's not the perfect happy ending people expect. There was no emotional reconciliation or moment where everyone hugs and forgives each other, but it's my reality, and I'm okay with that. This house is my sanctuary, my piece of stability in a world that sometimes feels completely chaotic, and nobody, absolutely nobody, is. I'm going to take it away from me.